Bitcoin, as it's called, bypasses the traditional banking system and has become increasingly attractive.
With Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. Bitcoin.
In 2014, 850,000 Bitcoins mysteriously vanished. Back then, they were worth $450 million. Today, they'd be worth over $50 billion. That morning, thousands dreamt of being millionaires. By nightfall, they had nothing.
Before this started, it was worth around $300,000. So it looks like that's disappeared.
In just a few hours, MtGox, the world's largest Bitcoin exchange platform, collapsed, taking with it the dreams and life savings of an entire generation of pioneers. Lives shattered, trust destroyed, but above all, a story that, 10 years on, seems to be multiplying rather than getting resolved. What if all of this was just an illusion? What if the greatest theft in the history of Bitcoin wasn't really one at all? In the heart of Silicon Valley in 2010, a young developer, Jen McCaleb, is very bored. He just sold his file-sharing company for $30 million, but the money isn't enough to satisfy his constant need for challenges. That's when he stumbles upon an obscure article about a new virtual currency, Bitcoin. Intrigued, Jed dives into the world of cryptocurrency. He spends entire nights reading forums, dissecting the source code. Bitcoin fascinates him. It's more than just a currency, it's a revolution. But there's a problem. It's almost impossible to buy. Back then, people traded Bitcoins in forums as if they were trading Pokemon cards. It was archaic and unsafe. An idea starts to form in his mind. What if he created a simple and secure exchange platform? In a few weeks, he codes a basic website. For the name, he reuses an old domain he owned, MtGox.com. Magic the Gathering online exchange. I didn't want to waste time finding a new name, he explains. Who would have thought it would become so important? On July 18, 2010, MtGox launched. At first, it was confidential. A few hundred geeks traded Bitcoins there, worth barely a few dollars. But quickly, word of mouth had its effect. MtGox becomes the go-to place to buy and sell Bitcoins. Jed is ecstatic. His small project is gaining momentum. But this rapid growth also draws the attention of cyber pirates. In October, a security flaw allowed hackers to steal the equivalent of $50,000. Back then, it was a huge sum, Jed remembers. That's when he realizes he's playing in the big leagues. He can no longer afford to handle this all by himself. That's when he meets Mark Karpelès, this bright young 25-year-old Frenchman living in Japan, working as a freelance developer with a passion for cryptography. Jed sees him as the perfect partner to handle the technical side of MtGox. In February 2011, Jed offers to transfer MtGox to Mark. It's a straightforward deal, no money up front, but a share of the revenue for 6 months, and then Jed gets 12% of the profits for life. Mark accepts without hesitation. What they both don't know is that this transfer of ownership will mark the beginning of one of the biggest disasters in the history of cryptocurrencies. The power transition takes only a few weeks, but on March 1st, 2011, as Mark had just taken over, an alarming message appears on Jed's screen. 80,000 Bitcoins had just been transferred from the main MtGox wallet to an unknown address. I believed it was a glitch, Jed recounts, but then I realized it was real. Someone had just stolen a third of the client deposits. Panicked, Jed and Mark try to figure out what happened, but the server logs had been erased. With no way of knowing who was behind the theft, Mark feels overwhelmed. Barely in charge, he is forced to manage a major crisis. Jed suggests that they discreetly buy back the missing Bitcoins with the platform's future revenues. It was the only solution, Jed explains. We couldn't go public with the theft. It would have killed MtGox. Mark agrees. Little does he know, he's just taken the first step towards an abyss from which he'll never truly recover. When Mark Karpelès took over MtGox in 2011, he had no idea of the exhilarating adventure that awaited him. At 25, this fresh-faced young Frenchman finds himself catapulted to the helm of the world's largest Bitcoin exchange platform. The first few months are tough. Mark has to juggle the daily management of the site, the development of new features, and the discreet repayment of the 80,000 stolen Bitcoins. But he's determined to make MtGox a real success, and his efforts pay off. In just a few months, the number of users skyrockets from 3,000 to 60,000, a spectacular leap in an era when cryptocurrencies were just beginning. The price of Bitcoin soared, hitting $16 in January 2011. It was a crazy time, recalls a former employee. It felt like we were at the heart of a revolution. Money was pouring in from everywhere. It was almost too easy. Mark moves into luxurious offices at the heart of Tokyo. He hires developers, salespeople, and customer support staff left and right. MtGox becomes a real company. But this rapid growth came at a cost. On June 19, 2011, MtGox suffered another attack. Hackers managed to steal the equivalent of $8.75 million. This time, it was impossible to hide the incident. Mark, determined to maintain transparency, published a statement hoping to reassure users. MtGox was not prepared for Bitcoin's explosive growth, he wrote. Our system was built as a hobby when Bitcoins were only worth a few cents. We're working hard to strengthen our security. Surprisingly, this incident doesn't dampen the enthusiasm for MtGox. On the contrary, the platform emerges stronger from this crisis. Users value the transparency of the brand. In 2013, MtGox reaches its peak, managing 70% of all Bitcoin transactions in the world. Every day, millions of dollars flow through its servers. Bitcoin now exceeds $1,000. Mark Karpelès becomes a celebrity in the world of cryptocurrencies. He's invited to conferences, interviewed by major media outlets. At 28, he's running a company valued at several $100 million. It was surreal, he later confessed. I spent my days coding and suddenly found myself running a multinational company. But behind this facade of success, problems pile up. The platform struggles to keep up with the pace of growth. Bugs multiply, and customer support is overwhelmed. Even more troubling, rumors started swirling about MtGox's solvency. Some users were complaining about abnormally long delays in withdrawing their funds. Mark tried to reassure everyone, announcing new security measures, promising improvements. But behind the scenes, he was getting more and more anxious because Mark was hiding a terrible secret. Since the initial theft of 80,000 Bitcoins in 2011, he's never been able to fill the hole in MtGox's accounts. Worse, other discrete hacks have occurred, further deepening the deficits. MtGox has actually been operating for months with a fractional reserve, a system where the company holds only a fraction of its clients' funds, hoping that not everyone will withdraw their money at the same time. If all users decided to withdraw their funds simultaneously, the platform would be unable to reimburse them. Mark is trapped. Every day, he hopes the price of Bitcoin will keep rising. At the end of 2013, as Bitcoin hits record highs, Mark knows the situation is unsustainable. MtGox is sitting on a ticking time bomb. What he doesn't realize is that the worst is yet to come. In the shadows, a group of hackers is getting ready to deliver the final blow to the world's biggest Bitcoin exchange platform. The whole world has its eyes on Bitcoin. It has reached its all-time high, $1,000. MtGox, the flagship platform of the ecosystem, is riding this wave of euphoria. Yet, behind the scenes, the house of cards starts to wobble. It all begins with isolated complaints on forums. Users express concerns about unusual delays in withdrawing their funds. Initially, these messages go unnoticed in the general tide of enthusiasm, but over the weeks, they become more frequent. I have been waiting for my bank transfer for 3 weeks, wrote an exasperated user. Customer support is not responding to my emails. What is happening? Mark Karpelès, the CEO of MtGox, tries to defuse the situation. He mentions temporary banking issues and promises a quick resolution. But behind the scenes, panic is spreading. Mark is still hiding a terrible secret. For months, MtGox has been operating with a huge deficit. Hundreds of thousands of Bitcoins are missing, vanished during successive hacks that Mark tried to cover up. It was like playing Russian roulette every day, a former employee will later confess. You never knew if you would be able to honor the withdrawals. To buy time, Mark puts in place increasingly strict withdrawal limits. He hopes that the continuous rise of Bitcoin will allow him to fill the gap. But it's a risky bet. By January 2014, rumors start to circulate. Influential bloggers begin to publicly question the solvency of MtGox. Doubt starts creeping into the community, and Mark makes a desperate last-ditch effort. He announces the relocation of MtGox's offices, officially to accommodate more staff. But in reality, it's an attempt to buy some time and reassure investors. But on February 7th, the unthinkable happened. MtGox suspended all Bitcoin withdrawals. In a brief announcement, the platform cited a transaction malleability issue that necessitated a temporary pause. The news hits like a bombshell, forums ignite, and conspiracy theories abound. Some accuse Mark of orchestrating a scam exit, others blame a hacker attack. The truth is far more complex, and it won't be long before it comes to light, plunging the world of cryptocurrencies into an unprecedented crisis. A few weeks later, it was announced that 200,000 Bitcoins had been found in an old company wallet. Investor anger rises against Karpelès, and there are also suspicions about Willy, a bot set up to compensate for losses caused by the hacks. This bot reportedly behaved strangely, potentially contributing to the rise of Bitcoin at the end of the year 2013, thus amplifying the mystery surrounding the case. The collapse of MtGox was a serious blow to the entire cryptocurrency industry. Investors' confidence was shaken, and regulators worldwide called for stricter oversight of the sector. But amidst this chaos, one question remained unanswered. Where did the 550,000 missing Bitcoins go? February 7th, 2014 will be etched in history as a dark day for cryptocurrencies. When MtGox suspends all Bitcoin withdrawals, it's an earthquake that shakes the entire ecosystem. For 10 days, a deafening silence reigns supreme. MtGox goes completely dark. Mark Karpelès is nowhere to be found. The users are overwhelmed with anxiety. Some have invested their entire savings into the platform. Others have turned into millionaires due to the surge in Bitcoin value, and now they can't cash out their earnings. It was as if the ground had opened up beneath our feet and investor shares. Overnight, all our money was locked up, without any explanation. The wildest theories are thrown around. Some think that MtGox was hacked, others accuse Mark Karpelès of orchestrating a massive scam exit. The most hopeful still cling to the possibility that it's just a temporary technical issue. On February 17th, MtGox finally breaks the silence. In a statement, the platform announces the discovery of a flaw in the Bitcoin protocol, which allowed hackers to steal funds invisibly. This explanation is immediately challenged by experts. "That's a lie," tweets a well-known developer. "The problem comes from their faulty implementation, not from Bitcoin itself." But the worst is yet to come. On February 24th, an internal document from MtGox leaked on the internet. 744,408 Bitcoins belonging to the client have disappeared. At the time, this represented $450 million. Today, these Bitcoins would be worth nearly $50 billion. It's the biggest theft in the history of cryptocurrencies. Nearly 7% of all Bitcoins in circulation have vanished. The news hits like a nuclear bomb. The price of Bitcoin plummets, losing 20% in a matter of hours. Other exchange platforms are overwhelmed by panicked users trying to withdraw their funds. On February 28th, MtGox officially files for bankruptcy. In a surreal press conference in Tokyo, Mark Karpelès bows before the cameras. Looking lost, he apologizes, but offers no clear explanation for the disappearance of the funds. "I am sorry for this situation, and I take full responsibility," he says with a trembling voice. Japanese authorities open a fraud investigation. The American FBI gets involved, suspecting links to organized crime. The reactions are not long in coming. Thousands of users who feel wronged are coming together to file lawsuits. The collapse of MtGox is a blow to the entire cryptocurrency industry. Investor confidence is shaken. Regulators worldwide are calling for stricter oversight of the sector. But in the midst of this chaos, one question remains unanswered. Where did the 744,408 missing Bitcoins go? The investigation is just beginning, and it will hold many surprises. As the world of cryptocurrencies is still reeling from the collapse of MtGox, a team of investigators quietly gets to work. Their mission? To track down the 550,000 vanished Bitcoins. Among them, one man stands out. Michael Groninger, former CEO of Kraken, a platform competing with MtGox. He left his position to focus on an ambitious project, developing software capable of analyzing the blockchain, the public ledger, where all Bitcoin transactions are recorded. "The blockchain is like a huge maze," explains Michael. "Each transaction is a thread that we can follow, but there are millions of intertwined threads. Our challenge is to create a tool capable of untangling all of that." For weeks, Michael and his team worked tirelessly. They process terabytes of data, create complex algorithms, visualize transaction flows as colorful graphs, and then, one day, the long-awaited breakthrough occurs. By analyzing the flow of funds on MtGox, Michael makes a shocking discovery. The thefts didn't start in 2014 as everyone thought, but as early as 2011, shortly after Mark Karpelès took control of the platform. The thieves' method was disarmingly simple. Every time new Bitcoins arrived at MtGox addresses, they were immediately diverted to other wallets. This systematic looting went on for years, creating an ever-growing deficit. But where did all these Bitcoins go? Following their trail, Michael notices a recurring pattern. Initially, the stolen funds were moved through an American platform called Trade Hill. Starting in 2012, they began to be massively funneled through a mysterious exchange, BTC-e. BTC-e was infamous in the industry for its lax identity verification policies, making it the perfect haven for laundering dirty money. Michael is convinced that the key to the mystery lies there. "It was as if we'd found the dragon's lair," he says. But the dragon itself remained invisible, because BTC-e is an opaque platform. Its owners are anonymous, its place of operation is unknown. How to trace back to the mastermind of the operation? Michael decides to dig deeper into his analysis. By examining the timing of the suspicious transactions, he manages to determine the likely time zone of the thieves. Drumroll, please. Russia, of course. This is a critical step, but to go further, Michael needs backup. So, he reaches out to the American authorities, unaware that this move would trigger an international manhunt. While Michael Groninger analyzes the blockchain, another man conducts an investigation on his side, Tigran Gambarian, Special Agent of the Internal Revenue Service, the American Tax Authority. He is closely interested in BTC-e, the mysterious platform through which the stolen Bitcoins pass. Tigran is an experienced investigator. He has already solved complex cybercrime cases, but BTC-e is a challenge of another level. The platform seems to operate in a legal void, ignoring all anti-money laundering rules. His first victory comes when he discovers that the servers of BTC-e are hosted in Virginia, just steps from Washington. It's a surprise, as the platform claimed to be based in Eastern Europe. With a warrant, Tigran gains access to the server logs. He identifies 3 administrators, one of whom particularly catches his attention with the pseudonym WME. Tigran notices that the IP address used by WME matches that of an account that sold a large quantity of stolen Bitcoins from Mt. Gox. A crazy idea pops into his mind. What if the MtGox thief created his own exchange platform to launder the money? To check this theory, Tigran gets in touch with Michael Groninger. He asks him to verify the Russian IP addresses associated with the sale of the stolen bitcoins. Michael's response confirms his suspicions. We had our main suspect. But who is behind the pseudonym WME? The answer is found on a Bitcoin forum, where WME has been active since 2011. By going through his history, the investigators make a crucial discovery. In one of his posts, WME forgot to hide his real name on a document. Alexander Vinnik, the most wanted man in the cryptocurrency world, finally has a face. This might be the one mistake too many that he just made. The investigation is intensifying. Vinnik is a 36-year-old Russian citizen with a shady past. He has already been involved in credit card fraud cases. Everything points to him being the mastermind behind BTC-e. Our number one suspect has just been identified. But now, how to stop him? As a Russian citizen living in Russia, he is out of reach of American justice. Investigators must wait for him to make a mistake. But Vinnik is a ghost. Worse still, he seems to have anticipated the investigations, meticulously erasing any trace of his online presence. For months, investigators scoured any online activity potentially related to Vinnik. They sifted through vast amounts of data. They monitor hundreds of IP addresses, but Vinnik is cautious. He systematically uses VPNs and anonymization networks to hide his location. Frustration is mounting in the team. Some are starting to think that Vinnik is untouchable, but Gambarian refuses to give up. He knows that even the most careful criminals eventually make a mistake. That mistake happens on a day in July of 2017. During a routine check, investigators spot a suspicious connection. For the first time in months, Vinnik logged into one of his accounts without using a VPN. That's the opening Gambarian had been waiting for. In just a few hours, he traces the IP address to a luxury hotel in Greece. Vinnik is on vacation with his family. The American authorities immediately contact their Greek counterpart. The trap is ready to close on Alexander Vinnik. But will the man who managed to steal and launder hundreds of millions of dollars be caught so easily? A joint operation is quickly set up. The plan is simple: arrest Vinnik discreetly without giving him any chance to escape or destroy evidence. On July 25, 2017, while Vinnik relaxes on a beach in the Halkidiki Peninsula, agents in swimsuits approach. In seconds, the most wanted man in the cryptocurrency world is handcuffed and taken away, to the astonishment of tourists. The arrest makes headlines around the world. For the first time, the face of the alleged mastermind behind the MtGox heist is revealed to the public. But if the investigators thought this arrest would put an end to the matter, they were gravely mistaken. It was only the prelude to an international legal battle of unprecedented scale and complexity. The arrest of Alexander Vinnik on a Greek beach is only the first act of a legal drama that will unfold over several years and involve 3 different countries. Hardly is Vinnik behind bars when the United States requests his extradition. The charges are serious: money laundering, computer fraud, drug trafficking. The American Department of Justice accuses Vinnik of laundering over $4 billion through BTC-e. But the Americans are not the only ones interested. Russia is also requesting the extradition of its national, officially for a fraud of 11,000 euros. However, many suspect a maneuver to protect Vinnik from a trial in the United States. As if the situation wasn't complicated enough, France steps in. French authorities accuse Vinnik of extortion and organized money laundering in connection with the Loki ransomware, a malicious software that encrypts a victim's files and demands a ransom for their decryption. Vinnik claims his innocence. He states that he is just a simple IT consultant for BTC-e, unaware of any illegal activities on the platform. His lawyers denounce a political conspiracy by the United States against Russia. "My client is a pawn in a political game beyond him," says Zoe Konstantopoulou, his Greek lawyer and former president of the Hellenic Parliament. Meanwhile in Tokyo, Mark Karpelès, the former head of MtGox, is on trial for embezzlement and falsification of computer data. Vinnik's arrest clears him of the Bitcoin theft, but does not completely get them out of trouble. In Greece, Vinnik finds himself at the center of an unprecedented legal battle. 3 countries are fighting over his extradition, each presenting different arguments. The Greek courts are overwhelmed by the complexity of the case. For 3 long years, Vinnik remains in detention in Greece. The conditions are harsh. He goes on a hunger strike to protest, putting his health at risk. Even assassination attempts are foiled in prison. His life is hanging by a thread. The situation becomes even more dramatic when Vinnik's wife, who had brain cancer, passes away in Russia. Vinnik is not allowed to attend the funeral. Finally, in January 2020, Greece decides. Vinnik is extradited to France, where he will be tried in December. The verdict is in: 5 years in prison for organized money laundering. However, the United States has not had the last word. They still demand Vinnik's extradition to try him on their soil. A new legal battle is looming, with the prospect of a much heavier sentence. The Vinnik case has gone beyond a simple cybercrime trial. It has now become a legal and diplomatic puzzle, highlighting the complex challenges of financial crime in the digital age. Meanwhile, the victims of MtGox are still waiting for answers. Where have the stolen bitcoins gone? Will they ever be reimbursed? The mystery remains unsolved. August 2022, Athens Airport. Alexander Vinnik, handcuffed, is escorted by American agents to a plane departing for the United States. After 5 years of legal battle, the man suspected of being the mastermind behind the largest cryptocurrency theft in history will finally face American justice. Upon his arrival on American soil, Vinnik discovers the extent of the charges against him. 21 counts, including laundering over $4 billion through BTC-e. If convicted, he faces up to 55 years in prison. But the case takes an unexpected turn. In June 2023, the U.S. Department of Justice makes a shocking announcement. New suspects are charged. Alexei Bilichenko and Alexander Werner are accused of participating in the theft and laundering of MtGox bitcoins. This revelation raises new questions. Was Vinnik just a pawn in a much larger operation? Who really are Bilichenko and Werner? And most importantly, where is he hiding? Meanwhile, a glimmer of hope emerges for the victims of MtGox. The 200,000 bitcoins found by Mark Karpelès are now worth far more than the total funds lost in 2014. The bankruptcy administrators announced the start of reimbursements for October 2023. But after so many years of waiting and false hopes, many creditors remain skeptical. Will they ever see the color of their money? During the summer of 2024, nearly 10 years after the debacle, the first Bitcoin refunds are underway. Nobuaki Kobayashi, the bankruptcy trustee, announced the start of payments. While holders are gradually recovering their cryptocurrencies, the market fears the impact of this massive injection of Bitcoin. Investors, worried, wonder if this flood of Bitcoin could cause prices to drop. The story of MtGox is far from over. While Vinnik is serving his sentence in an American prison, Bilichenko and Werner are still on the run, and the victims are hoping to finally be reimbursed, one question remains. Where did the rest of the stolen Bitcoins go? The answer to this mystery could well rewrite the history of the biggest heist of the digital age, and perhaps reveal that we've only seen the tip of the iceberg of a much larger conspiracy.